She's back. Mwahahaha. Y'all, it has been a good long hot minute since I have been on here, but it has been for good reason. To keep it short, sweet, and simple, I have had a huge life change, loss, grieving, and just slowly trying to pick up the pieces of what my life is. So I am like slowly army crawling my way to a comeback. I am the comeback kid. 100%. I am the comeback kid. It is just meant to be. What better way for me to make my comeback than to do my January, beginning of the year wrap up. For January, I had 3 DNFs and I blasted through 9 audiobooks. Usually I do DNFs at the beginning. This one, I'm just gonna save the DNFs for the end. Book number 1 was My Dark Vanessa by Kate Russell. I gave this one 5 stars. Book number 2 was The Last One by Will Dean. I gave this one 3 stars. Book number 3 was Wind Daughter by insert author here because I can't remember right now. I gave this one 3 stars. Book number 4 was Dead Silence. This is a science fiction horror. I originally thought it was going to be a thriller, but it actually turned out to be more on the horror side. This one is by S.A. Barnes, and I gave this one 1 star. Book number 5 was The Folly by Gemma Amore. I gave this one 2 stars. Book number 6 was The Hike by Lucy Clark. I gave this one 3 stars. Book number 7 was Vengeance of the Pirate Queen by Trisha Levenseller, one of my favorite authors. I gave this one 4 stars. Book number 8 was The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. I gave it 3 stars. And the last one, book number 9, one of my favorites. I talk about it all the time. Y'all know. If y'all know, then you know, because you know. And it's Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I did a re-listen. This was my 3rd re-listen of this. I mean, it's one of my favorites. It gets 5 stars every single damn time. So good. Let's jump right into my thoughts. My sweet, 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 hilarious, and just ever-charming, opinionated thoughts. Book number 1, My Dark Vanessa, I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. If I give it a 5 star, it's on my favorite books list, 100%. I'm gonna do a whole separate video on this, so stay tuned for that if you want to know my thoughts. This one is gonna be really in-depth, and I want to take my time with this, considering the content and considering how personal it is for me, kind of taking my time with it. So stay tuned for that. The Last One by Will Dean. Now this, all right, our main character goes on a cruise and she wakes up in the morning and her partner is missing, and she soon finds that a lot of other people are missing, and then she goes on this search for other passengers as the start of a very unrealistic plot and storyline that plays out completely opposite of what the Goodreads premise and synopsis says it's going to be, or that the Goodreads synopsis implies it to be. Therefore, it is not what I expected. Not only not what I expected, but just not great. Wasn't feeling it. Completely different vibe, completely different than what the premise said it was gonna be. And it ended, the way it ended, I was like, what is happening? No, just no. No, that's it. Wind Daughter. Wind Daughter is like the sequel or companion. I'm not gonna call it a sequel because it's not really a sequel, but in a way it is. So I don't know. I'm gonna say it's a sequel slash companion because it's both. It's really both. To Echo North. Echo North is the East of the Sun, West of the Moon retelling, and I loved Echo North. I gave Echo North 4 or 4.5 stars. I read it years ago, and it was so beautiful. It was beautiful and so imaginative, and I just really loved it. This one I didn't like as much as I loved Echo North. I should say I liked this one. I didn't love it like Echo North. It briefly revisits old characters, which I did like, but it is a whole new story and plot in and of itself. And I loved the beautiful quotes that this story has, and the storytelling in this, it's like, it weaves. It's like the storytelling, you just feel like it's just weaving you through the beautiful imagery and the story that it's telling. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful. It's spot on. When I read this, it was the physical copy. So no, I got through 8 audiobooks this month, and this was my 1 physical copy. I had to return it before I could actually write down all of the beautiful quotes that this has, or else I would have shared one with you. But just trust me, it's filled with a lot. It's filled with a lot. It's fantastic. I gave it 3 stars and not a higher rating because I was comparing it to Echo North, and I just loved Echo North so much more. Even though the storyline and it was like beautifully woven, it was dragging for me when it didn't, and it wasn't necessary. I was comparing the two, and I was like, mer, mer, mer. Like, mer. The plot was better, in my opinion. Like, the writing in both was beautiful. The writing in this one, it was great. It's just the plot is what I'm trying to say. The plot in this one, I did not like the plot in this. It was like, it took too long, and then when it got there, it was like, it could have been better. But I guess the only real thing that kept me in this story was the writing, and was how beautiful it was in terms of writing and the quotes and the storytelling. But in terms of plot, it wasn't, I didn't like the plot. I didn't like the purpose and the goal. Echo North was better, in my opinion, when it comes to plot. Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. All right. This was my 1 star. This was my 1 star. Here we go. I'm gonna spill it. I'm gonna spill it. I'm gonna tell you why. Sci-fi horror. Sci-fi horror. Not really my jam, but I did it anyway because this was Jake and Stacy over from the Bookish Drummer. Their January book club pick for Thrill, Kill, or Chill. Those are the 3 categories that you can put whatever the book club pick of the month is. You have to put it in one of those 3 categories. This was the pick for January, okay? And I was like, okay, I'll do it. I want to see what, it was on my list, all right? It was on my list to see what it was about. I did it. And let me tell you, look here. It's like everyone's like, oh, it'll pick up, maybe it'll get better. Oh, people are starting to die now. It's gonna be great. Like, what? Y'all are living in an illusion, okay? And if I'm gonna live in one of those, it better be worth living in. And this ain't it. This ain't it. And that's it. That's it. Next was The Folly, okay? The Folly, this one was, it's like a short, this one was like a short, quick listen. I think it was only like 4 hours. And I'm like, this is 4 hours? This is gonna go by quick. And it did. It did. This was a British Gothic mystery. That intrigued me. It's a British Gothic mystery. It was set on like a coastal setting. It had creepy moments as well. Hence the Gothic part, you know, Gothic tends to be creepy. It was not what I thought, expected, or wanted. I mean, short, sweet, and simple. It's just, it wasn't what it could have been. And what it was not the best. How I just felt about that one is exactly the same way I felt about this one, The Hike. Same I'm just going to read the Goodreads premise because it's really short. They lace up their hiking boots for the adventure of a lifetime in the Norwegian wilderness, a place of towering mountains, glass-like lakes, log cabins, and forests stolen from a fairy tale. It's the perfect place to lose yourself until a broken body is found at the bottom of a ravine. Somewhere out there, someone knows exactly why a woman has died, and in this deep, dark wilderness, there's a killer on the trail. It's because like it makes it sound like it's this murder mystery, and it's just, there was no thrilling mystery aspect to it. Like, you didn't get that excitement or thrill that you want when you read a murder mystery. So it was just a solid pass. I was very disappointed. Vengeance of the Pirate Queen by Trisha Levenseller. I love Trisha Levenseller. I've read everything that she's written so far. She's one of my favorite authors. There's only a couple that she's written that I was not really into. I still liked them. I just wasn't really into them. But as a whole, I think she's fantastic. Now, this one is a companion novel. I should say it's set in the world of Daughter of the Pirate King, and Alosa makes a scene in this, which is great. I love that because our main character happens to be Alosa's assassin. Now, this one is a romance, and I wasn't like fully aware of how like romantic-y was meant to be. I mean, I would have read it anyway because that's not my jam, but I would have read it anyway because it's Trisha Levenseller. I kind of have to, and it's like Daughter of the Pirate Queen, like the storyline. So like it's one of the best, it's one of my favorite stories of all time. Our main character is not anyone new. She is on Alosa's crew, and she is Alosa's assassin, and the love interest happens to be, I forgot his name, but he is one of the guys from the story crew that became sober. He got sober and he was like kind of awkward. So in those books and that story, that's how you remember him. You remember him like crushing, like being very fond of our main character in this one. And she wants nothing to do with him. She treats him horribly because she wants him to stay away from her because I'm not going to tell you because of spoilers. It comes out why she's like that, and it has to do with her backstory, has to do with her trauma. She has the trauma that she's been through in her life. Our author, Trisha, really did an amazing job at fleshing out character development in the story. Our main character and the love interest, he is fantastic. And it's the second half of this book where his character growth really happens and his personality really shines, and you really see who he has grown into, what he has become to be as a man, as a sober man, compared to what he used to be. And I loved him. I immediately loved him, is because of their dynamic. How he speaks to her, how he handles her. There are sub-dom dynamics in this book, 100%. And I'm all about it. I love it. This is a young adult. It's deemed young adult. It's marketed as young adult. Trisha Levenseller writes young adult. However, this becomes too spicy to be considered young adult. So that is the only drawback for me in this. Just the spice level was too much to be considered YA. That's the only reason I didn't rate it 5 stars. But the dynamics of the DS dynamics, loved it between them. And I have to preface that because the villain in this story tries to have a DS type of dynamic with her, and he's a villain, he's a tyrant. He perverts the beauty of a DS relationship. He perverts the purity of what it's supposed to be with manipulation, coercion, and control. And so I guess that could be a trigger warning if you have trigger warnings surrounding that. I mean, that's in here. So I do have to preface that by saying that when I'm referring to me loving the DS dynamic in this, it is referring to our main character and our wonderful love interest. Not the villain, our good guy. Not the bad guy, but the good guy. And number 8, Assassin's Blade, the prequel to the Throne of Glass series. Now, this one is a collection of 5 novellas. Actually offers a deeper look into our main character's history, because after this I did read Throne of Glass, which you will get in my February wrap-up video. And I will say that if you are interested in reading the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, read this first. And I actually looked at reviews, and there was a lot of people who read this after, and everyone was like, I wish this was out before I had even started the series, because I would have enjoyed the first book a lot more. There was a lot of people who mentioned that they wish that this prequel would have existed, that she would have written this before book 1, because book 1 was just mediocre. And I could see that. I could see that 100%. So I'm going to tell you, if you want to read Throne of Glass, read this first before you read book 1. Because it does provide insight into our main character, and it fleshes her out. And even though it's a collection of novellas, it does read like a book. So it was actually really well done. I actually recommend this. And of course, Daisy Darker. I love it. I think I said this, I really was my 3rd re-listen of this. Just, I fell in love with it all over again. I missed it. I missed her. Oh my God. Daisy and Nana, they are my 2 favorite, they're on my favorite characters list. I love Daisy and Nana, and the atmosphere, the storytelling, the mystery. If you want an actual locked door murder mystery, read this. Listen to it. I recommend the audiobook of this. The audiobook makes the story, because the narrator is fantastic. She brings out the atmosphere, and she really brings out our characters, and it's fantastic. Please read it if you haven't read it, or listen to it. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And actually, me and one of my best friends, Serena, who I talk about here quite often, Rena and I did a buddy read of this. We buddy read it the first time. So we were like, we need to just do a re-listen. I need a win, because I can't even tell you how many books I have DNF'd over the past 4 months. And you're gonna get that in my end of the year wrap-up video. So stay tuned for that. A lot of tossing books out windows. Lots of what the fuck toss. So this really pulled me out of a slump, and I've realized that I'm just gonna do that for myself. Whenever I'm in a reading slump, or I really need to feel just that comfort, you know, just like, I'm gonna re-listen. I'm gonna do a re-listen of my favorite stories. So this is like gonna be the year of re-listens for me. Daisy Darker, I love you. I love you. Mwah. All right, on to the DNFs. DNF number 1 was Watching You by Lisa Jewell. I don't even remember. What I do remember was, you know what I remember? I remember thinking, I'm done with Lisa Jewell. That's what I remember. I liked a couple. I liked a couple. But I'm not into it anymore. Like, she is kind of the queen of writing mysteries, domestic mysteries. There's a lot of gossip. You're in people's lives, you're in people's business. And she is like, she makes it dark and twisted as well. So a couple that I have read by her, that there was like, wow, this is really dark and twisted, but it was really well done. But that was like 2. And the other ones that I read by her, I was like, no, I'm not feeling it. So after this, I was like, I don't even remember how far I got in this. And I was like, I'm done with Lisa Jewell. I've had my fill, I've had my share. This was the last one I tried, and I was like, I'm done. Next was Silver Linings Playbook by Matt Quick. Now, the reason I DNF'd this book is because I watched the movie. It's one of my favorite movies now. And the movie is so much better, in my opinion. I was like, well, let me just see. And it was just a solid pass because it was so different how it was being told. I mean, it was different in a lot of, like the storyline. There were differences between the book and the movie of, you know, our character Pat and what he was like driven to do and how like his personality was different. I felt like the personality of Pat in the book and Pat in the movie were two different people. I was like, I'm not getting the same feeling here. And it was a lot, and the book was just a lot of telly, not showy type of writing, and I hate that. If you know me at all, you know I hate it. I hate telly, but not showy. I don't like that writing style at all whatsoever. Like, let me just hang myself. No. The movie is fantastic. I love it. It's hilarious. The sense of humor is just top notch. The comedy, top notch. Hilarious. And it does show a real representation of what bipolar 1 looks like and trying to live with it, live out everyday normal life with a mental illness. And it's fantastic, and it cuts the tension with the humor. There's like a right balance of you know, the realness with humor, and I'm like, I get it 100%. It's like constantly topsy-turvy. Please go watch that movie. And then the last DNF was Lexicon by Max Berry. Now I am gonna read a quote, a very long quote. Actually, it's not just one quote, it's several, and I just like mashed them into one. So I'm calling several quotes that I mashed together into one massive quote. This was the last thing that I had written down before I DNF'd this bad boy, okay? Difference between a voluntary action and a reflex. But I don't understand how a reflex can be triggered by a word. Words aren't just sounds or shapes, they are meaning. That's what language is, a protocol for transferring meaning. When you learn English, you train your brain to react in a particular way to a particular sound. As it turns out, the protocol can be hacked. ... And the guy's like, this is a conversation between two people, by the way. Should have said that. The guy's like, can you teach me the word voodoo? And the other guy's like, no, not unless you're naturally compelling with self-discipline. Can you turn into a competent poet? If I can resist persuasion, then that's an improvement. Love is a kind of persuasion. The most fundamental thing about a person is desire. It defines them. Tell me what a person wants truly, and I'll tell you how to persuade them. And if you can't be persuaded, ergo, you can't feel desire. So that may be hard to understand. Basically, these two guys were having a conversation, clearly, and basically about hacking, being what's called a poet. You're being a poet of what the other guy called word voodoo. You can basically manipulate people using the word voodoo because you can hack the language and basically like biohack someone's brain and hypnotize them. So it's like hypnosis and persuasion with like word magic, so to speak. That pretty much summed up what the premise is like kind of getting at, but the storyline did not execute at all. It did not execute. If you want to read a story, a fantastic story, one of my favorite stories that actually executes the gist of what I just read, go read Vita Nostra. This one is intense, but it's fantastic. And it has to do with language. The magic of language and persuade. Basically, it sums that up. What I just read is this book, but even better. Times 100. Lexicon was not executed well. Premise sounded fantastic. sounded like Vita Nostra to me. I'm like, oh my God, another story like Vita Nostra? Let me see how this is. And it just, the execution was just out the window. It was out the window. All right, that is everything that I went through in the month of January. I am making a comeback, crawling my way slowly. I'm crawling, y'all. I'm crawling. Stay tuned for my end of the year for 2023 wrap up, because y'all, I am so far behind. That wrap up is going to be more like a speed dating style. Like, it's going to be different. It's going to be more like one word or one sentence or like one quote of like my thoughts and feelings of all the books, all the things that I went through, because I went through a lot and I'm really behind. So if you like this video, give me that thumbs up and go down in the comments down below and tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you read in the month of January, what you liked, what you didn't like. If you have any recommendations for me that you think that I should read that you read, please let me know. I want to know all the things. Of course, smash that subscribe button so you do not miss any of my upcoming new bookish content, because I'm making a comeback. It's coming. And as always, happy reading, and I will see you in my next video. Cheers.